name is Deputy Chief Frank Giuliano. I'm with the Bonita Springs Fire Department. We've just laid the cornice from the 9/11 Memorial artifact. Bonita Springs Fire Department is very happy and honored to be able to present this artifact to the city of Bonita Springs. This is it's a granite piece cornice that was sitting on top of a wall in the park between the two World Trade Center buildings. It was dug out of after the aftermath of 9/11 and was stored in a 50,000 square foot warehouse along with several other artifacts. This artifact is one of 45 that I know about in the state of Florida. Every other state has an artifact as well, and so do several countries, and an Air Force base in Afghanistan also has a piece for the World Trade Center. This piece represents to us a physical reminder of the aftermath and the happenings that day on September 11th. As a firefighter, it means a lot to me personally and other firefighters. After all, 343 firefighters perished that day, along with several law enforcement officers, EMS workers, and of course thousands of our citizens.
Yeah, I remember September 11th when the towers fell. We were on a job site and going about our business. We were pouring concrete, and it was myself and 2 or 3 crew members, and it was just a regular day for us. It was a beautiful day. We were in Spring Creek Village. I mean, you remember all these small details, and with the concrete truck driver came out of the concrete truck and said to us, it was just really surreal. He came out of the truck and said, "Hey, somebody just flew a plane into the World Trade Center and into the towers." And we all kind of looked at each other like, "Yeah, sure, what? You know, it must have been an accident, it must have been this and that." He goes back in the truck, comes out a few minutes later, and tells us that, you know, the United States is at war, and that's how we find out about it. And of course, I started making a few phone calls right then and finding out what's going on. We turned the radio on, and at that time, on our construction crew there, all the guys listening to the Howard Stern show, and Howard Stern's did some, actually, for a change, some really good reporting, because he was right there, and it was amazing to listen to his take on what was happening, and you could hear it in their voices that there was something incredibly wrong, and that's how I found out. I'll never forget it.
And we go from there. You can raise the microphone a little more. Perfect. In 3, 2, 1.
I am Deputy Joseph Andujar with the Lee County Sheriff's Office, a retired New York City police officer with 21 years of service. And on September 11th, I was a first responder and survivor. Early in the morning on September 11th, it was my day off. I received a phone call that alerted me to a situation that was happening, and quickly turned the TV on to watch the second plane strike the tower. I immediately knew that my services were going to be needed there, and so I got dressed and drove into work, where I was then deployed to Ground Zero. I arrived at Ground Zero about a half hour after the second tower had fallen, and began to search for survivors, victims. Coming into Ground Zero was a devastating experience, unlike anything I had ever had. Up until then, I was a 13-year veteran who thought he had seen it all, and to watch what had happened to 2 beautiful, majestic buildings that seemed to touch the sky was indescribable. What was before me seemed like a scene out of a horror movie. It was 10 stories of flame, burning, bent, twisted steel, smoke, dust. Indescribable. Words can't describe what it is that took place that day. After several hours of being there, I finally made it back to my station house where, unbeknownst to me, I had been declared missing. And after that, it was 20-hour work days, digging with my bare hands mostly to try to recover any surviving victims that, as it turns out, were none to be found. And then with the discovery of having lost some very close friends, was a difficult task to undertake. Today's dedication brings back some of those memories. It also makes me feel honored and proud that the some 4,000 victims now have a new voice, that they have not been forgotten. This piece of granite will forever instill upon someone that views it those people that made the ultimate sacrifice.
Good evening. My name is Dave Grossley. I'm the former chairman of the Veterans Advisory Committee for the City of Bonita Springs, and I'd like to thank everybody for being at our Patriots Day ceremony for 2013. This has got a significance to me from two standpoints. I am a retired New York police officer, although I had retired from upstate New York several years before 9/11, but I was still a law enforcement trainer, and I was teaching a class out in Denver, Colorado on that fateful day. I was woken up by a phone call around 7 o'clock in the morning, shortly after 7 o'clock in the morning. Of course, that was shortly after 9 o'clock on the East Coast, and I was told to turn on the TV. I was getting ready to go out and teach my class, and I turned on the TV and I saw what was happening in New York City. Shortly after that, another phone call came in. It was from a Metro DC police officer that I had trained, and he wanted to make sure that I was okay. I was on my cell phone. He didn't know where I was, and he wanted to make sure that my mom and dad were okay. My mom and dad were still living in New York. My son and my daughter were working at their jobs in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and of course by that time we had known what had happened to Flight 93 when it went down in a field outside of Somerset, Pennsylvania. I tried to get through to all four of them, my mom and my dad and my son and my daughter, but I couldn't because all the lines were down. Some of them because of the towers collapse, and others because the lines were just so jammed up. It was several hours before I finally got back to them. 9/11 has also got another significance for me. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and although my Ranger unit was deactivated shortly after the Vietnam War, several months after September 11, 2001, my unit was reactivated and was deployed to Afghanistan and also to Iraq, and it's still over there as we speak. This is a significant day for everybody all over the country, Patriots Day. It's a day that we all should remember not only the 343 firefighters that lost their lives on that day, the 60 NYPD and Port Authority police officers that lost their lives, and the 10 federal agents that were working in New York City that lost their lives, but also the 2,997 innocent individuals that lost their lives when the collapse of the towers occurred, and also in the Pentagon, and also on Flight 93 that crashed in Pennsylvania. Let us all remember those brave individuals, all those citizens, and never ever forget 9/11. Thanks.
I remember perfectly where I was on September 11th. I'd gone over here in Bonita Springs to visit my stepfather, and he was sitting in front of the television, and he was intently watching, and I came in all bubbly and, "Hi, how are you?" And he was like, "Shh, shh, shh." And I walked over, and as we watched what was unfolding, and it was just horrific, I thought he was watching a movie. And I just kept looking in just total disbelief that this was actually happening at that very moment. What also ran through my mind at the same time was that my daughter was a ballerina in New York City, and she had told me that she was going to be doing a performance for a trade show at the World Trade Center that week. I had no idea where she was, if it was that day. My heart was racing. I couldn't get to the phone fast enough, and then also realized at the same time that my brother is an American Airlines pilot, and he was flying the route from Boston to LA. I was just beside myself, and of course, picking up the phone, we couldn't get a signal. All circuits were busy, and it took hours to find out that both my brother and my daughter were safe. But it wasn't until hours later that I found out that a husband of a dear friend of mine from New Jersey they could not find him. They didn't know where he was, and he worked on the 102nd floor and was a partner with Cantor Fitzgerald. He did lose his life that day, and I will never forget where I was and how I felt that moment, seeing that on television as it unfolded. And today's ceremony is just a reminder of all the things we have to be grateful for and thankful for every day.
My name is Adam Prenke. I am a Bonita Springs resident and also commander of American Legion Post 303. On September 11th, I was at work at the Bonita Springs Post Office when we heard the news over the radio that a plane had hit the first tower of the World Trade Center. Several of us at work went and turned on a TV that we had in the office, and it was on the news, and we couldn't believe what we were seeing. As we were watching the live broadcast and they were talking about the fire in the tower, we observed the second plane hit the tower. And it was just, everybody was silent. It was very shocking, and we couldn't believe what we were seeing. It was just something that I will never forget. I will never forget the image of that plane going into the tower and then seeing those towers come down and just feeling the lives that were lost that day. It was a sad day forever for me and all of America.
I'm Evans Conforti. I'm a fire commissioner with Bonita Springs Fire Rescue. On September 11th, 2001, I was at home here in Bonita, and my wife called me and told me that a plane had struck the towers in New York. I turned on the TV, and then I thought, I better call my brother. He's only 2 blocks away. He lived only 2 blocks from the disaster. And I just remember watching and seeing the towers come down, and everything was very distressful.
Like everybody who was around during that time, we can all remember where we were at the exact moment when we heard about the attacks. I myself was building a house. One of the carpenters that I was working with said his sister had just called him and said that a plane hit one of the towers. Well, we shrugged it off thinking, well, it was just a commuter plane, small plane. As the events unfolded, he kept getting updates from his sister on a telephone, and we realized this was something catastrophic. We all left. I went home, and I was able to see the second plane hitting the tower. At that moment, like everyone else, we realized that this was terrorism, and that our world had changed, and it changed for the worse, and it'll never be the same.
Hi, I'm Commissioner Lohan from Bonita Springs Fire Department. 9/11, I happened to be at a golf club in Naples and in a locker room when the television went off, and realized that it clearly was not an accident when the first one hit, and when the second one hit, obviously we all knew. And having grown up in New York City and watched the Twin Towers be built, it sure hit very, very hard.
On September 11, 2001, I was packing boxes and moving out of my house in Cape Coral. I remember we had a small TV sitting up on my dresser, and I had the news on. And when the news hit, I was completely shocked like everybody else. And I had a friend who was working as a physician right next to the World Trade Centers in the emergency room. Of course, instantly I was so taken back by what had happened. I thought it was just some kind of crazy accident. Then I started thinking about it, and probably within a few minutes, specifically when the second plane hit, I knew it was no accident. I've been to New York several times, many times, and stood at the site, and I knew it was impossible on a clear day for that to take place. Those towers were just such a beacon of our great city, New York, and our great society. And when I saw those come down, just the sacrifice that people made, it's just a testament to the human spirit, and specifically the firefighters, because I'm the fire department, because I'm the chief of the fire department here in Bonita Springs. I am proud to wear this uniform every day, and with wearing this uniform becomes an expected level of service to the community and to the American people. And every firefighter in America who dons the uniform holds those same traditions in high regard and is expected and does perform at that level. And with that, I think the New York City firefighters gave us further belief in the values that we take to work with us every day.
Hello, I'm Greg DeWitt, Deputy Chief of Bonita Springs Fire Control and Rescue District. And my reflection back on September 11th was, I wasn't a chief at the time, I was a lieutenant on the fire department. I was going to my second job, and on the way there I heard about what was going on, and for the next 3 hours all I was glued to the TV set. I told my boss at the time that I had to go home, had an emergency, And went home and spent it with my family and talked to other firefighters and just reflected on that day of what was going on, what my fellow brothers in New York City were going through. I called other people on the other coast that I know of. I'm on the urban search and rescue team, so I stayed glued to my phone and to my pager to see what we were doing, if we were going to do anything, either as an urban search and rescue team or as a department itself. So my reflection on that was hurry up and wait, and what can I do to help? As years went on, I started thinking about it more and more, that every generation has their tragedy, whether it was Pearl Harbor or Kennedy being assassinated. And for my generation, I think this is going to be something that everybody's going to know where they were that day on September 11th at 8:45 in the morning.
September 11th. I had just worked the night before. Got off I think about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. Went to bed. I usually leave the TV on. I kept hearing something about planes and a tower, and then my phone started ringing. I got up, called a buddy of mine that I worked with that night. We started talking, turned the other TV on, and that's when we started seeing the planes. One plane hit the tower. And that's where I was at. I was waking up real early to that big shock.